Welcome. Great to have you here. This is a unique moment, a moment that unites all of us. We all face anxiety and loss. We all see broken systems. We all experience the impact of the climate crisis. This is a unique moment. This is a turning point if we choose to make it one. This is a moment to reflect, to learn, to share, and to co-create. And I invite you to contribute. I ask you to contribute. I ask you to partner to fix broken systems. I ask you to join the movement so everyone can step into their change-making power. I ask you to nominate the next generation of changemakers. And I ask you to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise. And I ask you to donate to support changemakers. This is our moment to fix the world. This is our moment to contribute. Today is the day, and you are the one.
Welcome everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone that is watching. Thank you for being with us. It's 7 o'clock p.m. in Italy, here in Milan. Good to have you here. This is almost the last panel of the Ashoka Changemaker Summit. So thank you for attending the entire summit and these very last session that we have today. Today we are going to talk about financial education and entrepreneurial education, and it's important for youth in today's world. And we are going to speak about this important issue with our amazing hosts that we have, guests that we have today. We have Lily Lapenna, founder and chair of My Banks. Thank you, Lily, for being with us. Ashoka Fellow, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much for your very early participation. Where are you from? Where are you now?
I'm based in Santa Monica in Los Angeles. So well. It's a sunny morning here.
Thank you for being with us. We are talk about this also with the other two speakers, Daniele Manni, teacher of Galilei Costa of Lecce, Scuola Changemaker, and Global Teacher Award winner of 2020. Hello, Daniele, how are you?
Hi to everyone. It is a great pleasure and an honor to take part in this. Good work to all of you.
Thank you, Daniele. And we have also with us Livia Di Nardo, Development Director of Junior Achievement Italia. Hello, Livia, how are you?
Hi, Luca. I'm very well, thank you.
Great.
Greetings from Rome.
Great to have you here. This panel is presented and hosted and sponsored by UniCredit. We thank UniCredit very much for supporting us, for supporting the entire Ashoka Changemaker Summit. And since it's sponsored by UniCredit, we really wanted to show this amazing initiative they have on entrepreneurial and financial education. The initiative I'm talking about is Startup Your Life, which is the financial entrepreneurial program of UniCredit Social Impact Banking that is recognized by the Ministry of Education in Italy, and it's included into the pathway for transversal skills and orientation. It's divided into 3 training courses, each consisting of a teaching part and experiential planning phase, that is mainly delivered on a digital platform with tutoring of bank experts. In the first 3 years of this edition, they train more than 41,000 students, and they deliver more than 2.5 million hours of training provided by more than 300 institutes in Italy. So 2020 and 2021 school year is actually the 4th edition of this program, and we're going to see a wonderful video that is done by a school in Turin. It's in Italian, this video, but I hope that you will enjoy the spirit and energy of these amazing students. So Eleonora, the session coordinator, will share it right now. It seems there is some problem in broadcasting the video. We can't. So we move on. We are trying to fix the technical problems that we have, but then now we have it.
Il progetto Startup Your Life ci ha fatto capire come far nascere un'impresa. Non so ancora bene che segno voglio lasciare nel mio futuro lavorativo, sicuramente avrà a che fare con l'aiutare gli altri.
La fase iniziale è stata quella innanzitutto di riunirci tutti assieme e cercare il focus, di cosa dovesse trattare il nostro progetto.
Lavorare in gruppo per me ha significato unire molto il rapporto con i miei compagni. Abbiamo pensato di sviluppare un'applicazione che permetta alle persone disabili di poter visitare le città in modo più semplice.
Ognuno di noi poi ha svolto piccoli compiti che insieme hanno dato vita al progetto.
Questa idea è partita dalle esperienze che hanno avuto alcuni di noi con magari familiari che avevano problemi di mobilità.
Abbiamo sviluppato la nostra idea di impresa attraverso il business game.
La prima cosa che secondo me bisognerebbe cambiare nel mondo sono i pregiudizi che hanno le persone sugli altri.
Svolgendo ciò per cui siamo portati, ciò che ci riesce meglio, ciò che ci piace, si può migliorare quello che è la nostra società.
Penso che la prima cosa che conti nella vita sia la felicità.
Right at the very end, the video says the most important thing is happiness in life. And I want to start with this and asking our amazing panelists, what makes you happy? I know that is a strange question and we didn't program it. And I want to ask you, what makes you happy? And I'm also asking it to our attendees. I'm also saying to our attendees, please send your message and comments in chat. And also your question. Our session coordinator, Eleonora, will take it to our speakers. So now I ask our panelists, what makes you happy, Livia?
Okay, in this very strange period, I think what makes me happy even more than ever is very small things. So like small moments of happiness throughout the day and step by step every single day. It's a moment where, you know, every little thing counts.
Thanks, Livia. What about you, Daniele? Daniele, you are on mute.
Yes, I was saying that it's pretty easy for me because what makes me happy are the smiles on my students' faces. Even if I see them through the computer monitor, but when they smile and when I make them smile, when they make me smile, I feel very, very happy.
Thanks, Danielle. And what about you, Lily?
You know, what makes my heart sing is this new thing I'm doing with my kids, because we're so confined to our homes at the moment. So we take mattresses from their rooms and we put them all together in one room and we have sleepovers, just the three of us. So that is at the moment the biggest joy in our family and in our home.
Thanks, Lily. And what makes you happy, dear attendees? Let's put it in chat and we are gonna read it soon. Now the session will start in this way. I'm gonna ask you one question and I give you 5 minutes to reply, 5 to 10 minutes to reply. And then after that, we will open a shared conversation among us. So I'm not gonna moderate. I'm just passing and giving the floor to one of you to ask the other speakers some of the questions that you have in mind. So my first question is to you is, why it's so important entrepreneurial and financial education for youth? During the Ashoka Changemaker Summit, we spoke a lot about the importance of skills like empathy, like teamwork, like shared leadership, but we didn't speak about the importance and critical competence of entrepreneurship and financial education. So I would start with Lily. Why it's so important, and why it's so important?
So in my opinion, when I started my bank, there was this gap in the education system that was glaring at me. And it was this idea that as we get older, we interact with money daily, many times a day. And yet nobody sets us up for this relationship that becomes very important. It becomes important in the decisions that we make for ourselves. It becomes important in the decisions we make for our families, but also for our communities, right? So this idea of my money, our future was a motto that really got me started on the financial education journey. And, I'll tell you a bit more about it, but for me, it's really important to bring skill sets and learning into the school curriculum and into learning environments where children come together from a young age that will then be useful to you later on in life. And that was really the motivator for me.
Thank you very much, Lily. Daniele, why it's so important? And if you can tell us a little bit more about how do you bring entrepreneurial and financial education in your school?
Yes. Well, first of all, before saying that it's important, I think it's fun because we have a lot of fun in doing it. I teach entrepreneurship in my my business school, business high school. I teach in a high school. And I teach entrepreneurship, I teach creativity, I teach innovation, change making for over 15 years, I think about 20 years now. And the importance, I found out the importance later, because when I started, I thought and I wanted to create 24 entrepreneurs out of a class of 24 students. But I found out that it didn't go that way, And I found out that only maybe 2 or 3 of them really became entrepreneurs. All the rest didn't. So I started to ask myself if I was doing something good or something bad in not teaching computer science, which is my main my main subject. But then all the kids coming back after graduation, they all came back, and all of them, every single student, thanked me for what they've done. And I was very curious about that. And I said, why are you thanking me? You didn't become an entrepreneur. You didn't use that. No. He said, you have to know that. They told me that when they were in university, they had all those soft skills that others didn't have. And I asked them which ones. And they said, well, as soon as a problem came up, we were already ready to find the solution. And the good ones called that problem solving. So they have that skills of the problem solving. And they said, we learned to work in a team. So we had teamwork going on very easily. And then we had a lot more self-confidence and self-esteem. And we noticed that other students that didn't go through that path, didn't have that possibility, didn't have that capacity of doing those things, some abilities that they didn't have. And another great skill that they went through was the managing of failure. I love when my students fail. They hate me when I tell them so, but I want them to fail. I want them to fail at 14, 15, 16, and 17 years old so they can get used to it. And when they're 24, 25, or 30, they all have all the experience at their back, and they can go on in an easy way to that. Then the importance of the thing, I found out that it is very, very important. So I tried, and I'm trying in the last years to try to make out on the rest of schools in Italy, even in earlier schools, even in grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, trying students to get in touch with entrepreneurship education because it is so important for their future.
Thank you, Daniele. And it resonates a lot with all the things that we said, even during the Ashoka Changemaker Summit. And I really love the fact that you said the management of failure, because actually we started the Ashoka Changemaker Summit with Breno, 12 years old, that says, you know, the importance of understanding failure as a success. So the first panel was actually redefining the idea of success and how youth are perceiving success. And two amazing young change makers said, I want to fail, and I want to fail a lot because it means that I tried. And these for me is success. This is something that they say in the very first panel of the Ashoka Changemaker Summit. And closing the summit with your statement is definitely wonderful. Thank you, Daniele. Livia, junior achievement in the world and in Italy is doing wonderful things in entrepreneurial education, bringing entrepreneurial education in how many, I don't even know how many classrooms in Italy, but it's a very huge number. So please tell us, how do you do it and why it's so important based on your experience?
Thanks, Daniele. Sorry, Luca, it's too difficult to speak after Daniele, but actually is the best ambassador, because why we do it, and actually also why I do it, because it gets really personal, and I guess that now at the end of the summit, you know, it's really something that, as Daniele said, you know, everyone's passionate about it. So it starts as a job, but then it's really a passion for us, and for me also. The motivation to join Junior Achievement was the fact that I really felt that there was a need to have more bridges between, as exactly like Lily said before, between what happens in schools and in education and what happens after for the kids. There's really hardly ever, very few schools, at least when I started. Now the situation is getting better, because there's teachers like Daniele who are leading the way, that are open to the external world, and they are open to have the students to work with the external world and to experiment what it means being entrepreneurial in a very protected environment, where it's okay and it's actually cool to fail, because then you learn how not to fail afterwards. So for Junior Achievement, our work is really related to bridging a gap between the schools and the external world, and to put the schools in the center again, because they are the center of our kids' life for over 12 years, actually 13 years in Italy. And it's there that they need to learn that there's something else instead of knowledge to learn. There's competencies, there's skills, there's something that they need to be prepared for afterwards. And if they try that at school, so if they learn how to be entrepreneurial at school, then it's much easier afterwards, because it's something that they will have to learn anyway, whatever they will do. As Daniele said, we're not teaching them how to become entrepreneurs. We're teaching them how to become responsible citizens, how to make the right choices, how to become financially responsible. That's what we're trying to do. And it's all in the hand of the teachers. So that's why JA exists, to give teachers more tools and more power to be able to do exactly this.
Thank you, Livia. You said at the very end, being financially responsible, and it really close to some of the reason why my bank was created, right, Lily? If you can tell us more about your experience of founder and chair of my bank.
Yes, absolutely. So really, to build on what Livia and Daniele shared, I was 26 when I founded my bank, and I had been working in Bangladesh. Although I am Italian and I was born in London and grew up in London, I decided when I finished university to go and work in Bangladesh, because I was fascinated by the idea of microfinance and the work that Yunus, but also that BRAC, and at the time Professor Abed was doing. in empowering women, right, to take financial responsibility. And so I spent an awful lot of time in rural Bangladesh with women borrowers and savers. And I left feeling extremely excited at the prospect of how much could be done through financial literacy, through financial empowerment and freedom. These women were often illiterate, but they could run small businesses, they could manage their family budgets, they could gain agency in their communities. And I came back to the UK and realized that many of my friends, and we were lucky, we came from pretty good schools and fairly good backgrounds, and we'd been talking about money in the household, but many of us were in debt, and many of us didn't know what an APR was. And the financial service industry was to some extent capitalizing on that. And so for me, it became really important to say, how can I help the next generations to become financially literate so that they can take control of their financial situation and not let the financial situation take control of their lives? And so we were really reversing the pattern that existed, where you would be a student and you would start getting into debt at age 18 and carry on being in debt for many, many years and struggling to access the appropriate and accurate financial service. And so our vision was, let's equip young people from a young age. Let's give them skills, knowledge, and confidence. Really at these three levels we have to be working. And then leave it up to them. You know, at that point, our job is done. They then decide, do they want to save? Do they want to spend? Do they want to share? Do they want to give? You know, but we make all the options available to them. And what we learned through my bank was that the need did not only exist in schools, the need existed in homeless shelters. It existed for looked after communities. It existed in prisons. It existed anywhere where young people came together. And so our program started in schools and then really started to spread out into anywhere. Essentially, we would work with young people under a tree as long as there was more than one. And our work was to empower them and to co-create with them. And I think the vision, the sort of theory of change, is that a financially literate person makes better decisions for themselves and their communities. And it's less of an expense on the government, right? It's less of an expense on the corporate community. If you have a financially literate consumer as a bank, you have less bankruptcies. So in the end, a lot of the work we've been doing is lobbying government to see the advantage of this, and lobbying the corporate community to see the advantage of this. And today, you know, the work of my bank is in great part funded by great institutions like Unicredito and many of the financial services and banks in the UK. And government, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll open up to questions, but the UK government has been very responsive. We did a 2-year campaign to bring financial education into the curriculum. And at the end of it, we were successful, not just us, all of the organizations working in financial education. So today, financial education is taught in the UK at secondary school level. And our work is not finished. We're now lobbying for primary school level because we think we need to start young. We think financial education needs to start from the age of 5. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Lily. Actually, it resonates also what a new program of junior achievement that started, I mean, even younger, I mean, during lower secondary schools, right, Livia? And this is actually my question, Livia, and giving you the floor, I will ask you also to pose a question to the other speaker. Why so early? I mean, is it important to start early? I mean, being financially literate, is it something that they need, or it's something that you start before, since in that way you have more years to build the literacy?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, it's actually true, and for both financial literacy and entrepreneurship, we have seen that actually, and I totally agree with Lily about the 5 years old, because we're also thinking now we are drafting a program that will go between 5 and 7, so will last even before primary school. And then what we have seen from a lot of impact studies that we carried is that if a student has multiple touch points throughout the school curriculum, about this, it's much, much easier than to become, as we said, financially responsible or to decide to become an entrepreneur. So if you start at 16, it's already too late. If you start at 12 and then you get, maybe you do 2, 3, 4 hours, 6 hours when you're 12 or in middle grades, and then you do something again when you're 16, then the power of the concepts are already there. And what you could do when you were 16, it's much more powerful. So if you had something even before, then it's really, really powerful. And what we see that it's really powerful with younger kids is the fact that you can also support financial education of their families. So what we implement in primary and middle grades, we always have, together with our programs, family activities that they can bring home to show what they have done, and to also to involve their families into the financial education part. So I'll maybe go back to Lily, because we are talking about younger kids, and ask exactly about this, whether you also have something that it's linked to families, because it's really, really crucial, at least what we see for younger kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a lot of studies with various academic institutions, and we looked a lot of at behavioral science and neuroscience, and how specifically neurological formation happens, right? How neurological pathways and habits are formed from the sort of age of 0 to 7. And so we understood that all the work we were doing post 7 was indeed very useful, but it wasn't really forming the habits. And so that's why we decided consciously to start earlier. And we are on that journey, and we're working with a lot of schools in the UK and a lot of corporates who are funding this initiative. Our work is indeed intergenerational. So the idea of at a young age, you work across generations. So you're working from the child with the teacher, but also the child becomes the starter, the spark for a conversation in the family. So you bring, as we do at home, activities, games, comic books, games that are both virtual and games that are physical that you play with families. And what's wonderful is it sparks conversation. It starts a conversation that then becomes ongoing across many generations. So I do believe that to be very important. And also this idea of just-in-time education that you alluded to, Livia, the nudge-based, right? If we repeat the message at different times in the child's journey, we're going to have a greater impact. So Daniele, my question to you would be, how do you see this point about just-in-time and many touch points with the child and the young person as they go through their entrepreneurial learning journey?
Daniele, while I'm saying that you are on mute, I'm going to also report the question that we have from the public, and the attendees said, why don't you come to Germany to teach in our school? This is something that we got from the audience.
Sure. Thank you to all of you. First of all, I'd like to say that I love what Livia and Lily say. they're great experiences. And I found a lot of matches in this. Well, to answer the question, I think that the just-in-time isn't so good. I prefer starting with kids a lot more younger, and starting with them. And in the last 5 years, I've had this experience in 10 schools. Every year, I take a laboratory with 11, 12-year-old kids. The first time I told my principal that I wanted to go in middle schools, she said it's too early for them to talk about jobs. And I said, I don't want to talk about jobs. I want to talk about creativity. And I tested it, and it really works a lot. When I get into a classroom with kids 11, 12 years old and ask them, what should we invent? What can we create to make people go mad about this? And they make me go mad. They make me go crazy because they are crazy. They take out things so marvelous and so unexpected. And it's there that I realized that here in Italy, I don't know how it is in Germany or in the States, but here in Italy, we teach, or better, we let creativity grow only in kindergarten and the first 2 or 3 years of primary school. And then we don't do it anymore. Kids go to school, they listen to teachers, they have to learn what teachers say, they have to have tests on what they say, but we never ask them to create something. And I noticed that this is a great lack. And maybe it's the best solution for all our kids all over the world, to make them think with their minds, to get into the entrepreneurial mindset that helps them to look at what happens around them and the lives around them and the people around them, and observe them and observe problems and try to think at solutions, starting from the early age. And my question is for Livia, because I'm very lucky to teach in a school, and it's over 30 years that I teach in my school. And I like to think that my students are lucky to come in this school because they go through what I think is a nice experience. But I only teach to about 60, 70 students each year. So this is the bad part of it. JA instead has the opportunity to go in so many schools. And my question is, what happens after the experience in each school? Because maybe a school will have JA as a partner for 1 or 2 years. What happens when you leave? Please say that things are marvelous, and when we go away, all the teachers start teaching entrepreneurship.
Of course. Unfortunately not, but yes, I mean, if they were all like you, yes. So our way, and in a way that Jelle has, he knows us, so he knows that our method relies on teachers. And we never go into schools to, as trainers, but we always try to empower teachers, exactly like Daniele, to give them the tools to teach entrepreneurship education, but also to use the tools that they learn through our courses in their everyday teaching. Because after all, Daniele, you teach IT, right? Informatics.
Yes.
Yeah. Computer science. Sorry. So our idea, I mean, in an ideal world, JA should not exist anymore, because the schools would already have embedded part of entrepreneurship education, but they would have, because I mean, for us, entrepreneurship education is important, but it's also a way to give teachers tools to teach transversal skills. And so it means that if we would not exist anymore, that they would have embedded transversal skills into their programs and their way of teaching. So in most of the cases, when the schools tell us we don't need you anymore, is because, like Daniele doesn't need us anymore. He does its own entrepreneurship education programs. In some other cases, and because we rely on teachers, in some other cases, it also happens that the teacher says it's a lot. They don't understand. They feel it that it's something that goes on top of what they do. And then it's too much for them. They don't see the purpose. They maybe put a lot of effort, but they didn't. And that's where we kind of fail. That's where we feel like, but maybe they have, Luca, after this is to you. But maybe, they got this, they got a tool. If they use a brainstorming, or if they use a mind map with their students, or if they manage to use at least some transversal skills methods, then it's fine. We don't have to be there all the time. But and actually, I have to go back to Luca. So yes, I cannot do a question to Daniele.
No, you're gonna do it later. But then, I'm a moderator, but I would really love to be a speaker because I want to say something.
Then okay. My question is to Luca.
No, but then I'm a moderator, and I use my power as a moderator to intervene. and I would say something. I mean, Livia, you said something very powerful. That says that we need to have, in some way you said, we need to have to change the mindset of teachers in actually teaching these transversal skills and entrepreneurship, because actually this is a very powerful things that we are trying to do in Ashoka. I mean, we used to say in Ashoka, and we are still saying, that we have to reach system change. So integrating these skills and these competencies into the curriculum and in the curriculum. While what you are saying that is extremely powerful is frame change and changing the mindset, which is so extremely transformative. And this is something that we have to work on that together. Yesterday, we heard from Indire, Elisabetta Mughini, speaking about the importance of working together to change curricula and the mindset of teachers. And Lily, you said something before that was extremely powerful, the power and the importance of working from the bottom. I mean, with the third sector, with the private sector, and at the end working with the governments and the public institution. So Lily, my question to you, and Livia, I take your question and I take your time of the question to pose a question to Lily. How much is it important to work with the entire ecosystem? And in your experience, and this is the difficult question, what were the key competencies that you had to work in such a difficult ecosystem?
Okay, so now we're really going to the Ashoka question, right? The system change. And I love that. And, you know, in part, I was prompted by Ashoka. My mindset shifted because I became a fellow. And when I was starting off in my fellowship journey, I was very much grassroots, right? Let's get this right. Let's work with hundreds and thousands of young people and test our hypotheses that this will create a big impact and a big change. And that's kind of where I probably would have stayed. But the Ashoka experience influenced my own mindset to think, you know, I got to the point where I was waking up 5 years into running my bank and I was just thinking, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to only ever reach 0.0001% of the youth population. You know, it will take 17 generations of me to be able to reach all. So how do I think about this differently? And it was indeed keeping me up at night. And I realized for it to impact all young people, it has to become a real, you know, the saying, it takes a village. Well, in this case, it took a whole system. It took a whole community. And so what we did is we created an all-party parliamentary group with all of the financial education providers in the UK. We came together. I invited the CEOs together. And we created a group which would meet regularly. It was painful because in many ways we had been used to competing for funding, right? And there we were saying, whilst it's healthy to compete on some level, what's really productive is for us to collaborate for the bigger win, for the bigger picture. And so with at the time, it was an organization called PFEG and Young Enterprise, which is the equivalent of junior achievement in the UK. We got together and we had a plan of how we would lobby government, but it wasn't enough if it came from civil society. We needed the big players. So we needed celebrities. We needed the big influencers on the money topic. So Martin Lewis, who in the UK has a TV show on money, became part of this movement. And we needed the corporate community. So we needed the banks to realize the win scenario for them. We needed the financial services to realize. Long story short, our all-party parliamentary group had 240 members of parliament sign on. Now, in the UK, that had never happened, apart from all-party parliamentary groups that had the word beer or wine in them. So we were really happy. And yeah, there you go. And so we got together, and for 2 years, we lobbied government. And now financial education is on the curriculum, and Junior Achievement in the UK is doing a lot to equip the teachers with support and frameworks. And also our model at my bank is a direct delivery piece, and we use a blended piece. So we use some technology and some face-to-face. And so what's happening is the landscape in the UK, the system is working so nicely together. We each understand what piece of the puzzle we can fill and how it all comes together to have, in my opinion, the most efficient impact that we can have. But it was no easy feat.
Definitely not. I mean, and I was also asking you what kinds of competencies you needed. But then I know that I took the time of Livia. So Livia, if you want to ask a question, so please do so.
No, my question was to Daniele, and it was related to what I was saying before. So it kind of switched again to teaching. And I was wondering how, since you started doing entrepreneurship courses, how you changed the way you teach your subject. And so how this has impacted your teaching style and methods.
Well, it's a good question. First of all, I have to say it. I don't teach entrepreneurship. We make entrepreneurship. I never teach anything at the dartboard. You know, we don't. I don't explain anything. We start with the idea and we go on with the idea. And in all these years, this kind of hands-on teaching that is not teaching, it's a path that we do together with the students. All these years of this hands-on obviously has changed because we got experience. The students didn't get the experience because they went through their course in 4 or 5 years, but I got the experience. So every year I notice that I'm a little bit better in something, a little bit better in catching the attention of the last student in the class. Maybe the first years I wasn't so good at this. Now I'm pretty good at this. As soon as a new year starts, I now I have this habit to observe the last ones and catch the last ones and start talking to the last ones and getting that sort of empathy bridge with them. And I noticed that it works a lot. And in the last years, I'm trying to telling all my colleagues, not only in my school, but every time that I happen to talk to teachers, trying to explain them that it's very important to start and get in this empathy with their students. They can even lose one entire month in trying to get in empathy, because if they catch up with them, all the work will be very, very easy from that point on. May I have a question now, last one? And it's for Lily. My question is because I'm very curious to know, how is the situation of entrepreneurship education in UK and US in high schools?
Thank you for that. You know, Daniele, we started at my bank with entrepreneurship education as well as financial education. And over the years, we have discontinued the entrepreneurship piece. And here are some of the things we learned. And, you know, I love to think that we failed in some ways, right? So my assumption, much like yours, because I was a young entrepreneur at school, I was running my own little businesses, was that this was going to be something that was exciting and plausible for many young people. And soon over time, we realized that we were creating these containers and these models and these frameworks where young people could generate ideas. And that part was exhilarating and exciting. And we were then helping them take the idea through to a point of realization. And in many cases, like is reflected in society, you know, 2% of us are entrepreneurs. But not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur, right? So the idea that we were in a way setting young people up to then not take something through to completion didn't sit right with me. And it was probably the way we did it, because it was more about coming into a school or coming into a youth environment, as opposed to enabling the teacher, which I know is the model that Junior Achievement and Young Enterprise has. And so we didn't think it was right. In fact, I often felt like, are we setting up the young people to experience discontinuation, right? Experience starting something and not finishing it. And again, I looked at the landscape around me and I realized that there were other programs that existed that supported young people. And I still remained skeptical and a little cynical as to whether some of them really work. And my theory, as I've evolved, and you know, I was the young entrepreneur. I set up my bank when I was 26, and Ashoka came, and there was a lot of attention around me, the entrepreneur. And what I realized was that that was almost counterproductive. That in fact, I'm much more interested in teams, and I'm much more interested in tackling this notion of the heropreneur, the hero entrepreneur, because it really, the value of the importance of the team is a far more of a learning lesson that you can have as a young person. And the emphasis on the one person generating the idea and the one person leading, I think is flawed. So today, the work that I think is successful in the UK around entrepreneurship is when it's embedded across the whole school, when it's embedded in different subject areas, and when it's really about team formation, when it's really about collaboration, when it's really about skill sets, as you alluded to, Daniele, right? What are the skills that your students left with? It wasn't that they left with a specific business. Some of them did, but they all left with key skills that will help them to be successful, whether they're an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, an employee, a lifestyle business owner, right? So that was in a nutshell my experience. Do I have a question, Luca, or would you like me to hand back to you?
No, I mean, if you can pose a question, that's fantastic. And then we gather some questions from the public, but then please go ahead with your question.
Okay, wonderful. So Livia, I'm interested in your motivation. So you talked a lot about it starts as a job and it becomes a passion. And I was interested in, what were your points of motivation to get into this type of work?
I kind of, that's a very good question. No, my motivation is really, I actually didn't know about JA when I started working for JA. But my motivation was really to find a job that would put together two worlds that are always separate. And it's the third sector, meaning like, the non-profit sector and the profit sector. And through JA, we really try to bridge and the public sector, which is mainly, the school education system. So it's kind of really, as I said, when I found myself mediating between large corporations who are sponsoring and supporting us and a school in a remote area in Italy, and together with that, we are part of the NGO and third sector world. It really made me feel like that, connecting and making a network, which is actually one of the main reasons I really love this job, made me feel that this is really my motivation. So, and as you said, because you mentioned that you did this advocacy activity, we didn't do it so well and so big in Italy, but that's also something that we try to do. We sat together with a lot of different players who were also our competitors. Ashoka was there too. And we managed to have a small piece, because in Italy, we're still kind of behind. We had a syllabus for entrepreneurship education drafted by the Ministry of Education. And now entrepreneurship education is one of the activities that students in the 3 last years of school, where they had to do some kind of work-school balance activities, work-related activities they can do. So that's just, it's not so, but it's something that it has to be. It's true that you need to play together, and there is so much to do, and there's so few schools. I mean, Luca, you mentioned before how many students we reach. 50,000 students every year. We feel it's a big number. It's such a tiny and small number. I mean, and we're one of the few players who are doing it. Means that really very few students have the chance to do it. So I think that for me, the big motivation is that this is something needed, and this is something that when the teachers in our case, or when we see teachers like Daniele, that they do this and it's embedded in their school, and it's something that it's done, then we feel that this is really we have achieved what we really do. So I don't have questions, right, Luca?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we got some questions from the public. One is the one that we are going to present is for Lily. But before going to this question, Lily, maybe I can tell you. And while you think of the answer, I ask a question to Daniele. So the question for you, Lily, is: would you say the collaborative instead of competitive model that you use to include financial education into the national conversation can be used to promote change making into the national education conversation? And while you think of the answer, I would like to ask Daniele an advice to other teachers that are listening to us. So what would you recommend to the other teachers? Because I know they have, I mean, they don't wake up and say, that's a good idea, let's start not teach, but practice entrepreneurship in their classrooms. What is the advice that you want to give them?
Yes, thank you, Luca. Well, instead of advising teachers about entrepreneurship, I'd like to give some good advice, if it's possible, that every teacher of every subject, they should get out the path, go out of the box. They should experiment. They should ask themselves, what can I do better to catch all the students? Because we know that in every classroom, we have good students, we have medium students, and we have the last ones. And always the last ones are left as the last ones. And I'd like my colleagues and all teachers to ask themselves, but is it their fault or is it my fault that those students are always left behind? And the only way to learn and to get good at this is experimenting things, trying to capture their attention, trying a way. If that way fails, try in a second way, fail, and then they'll come up to the success. And let me say just a little thing at the end, because I think that we are all together in cheering for my colleague, Carlo Mazzone, which is a computer science teacher, and he teaches entrepreneurship exactly as I do. And he is among the top 10 right now for the Global Teacher Prize. And in a few days, we will discover, and we all hoping to discover, that this year it will be an Italian teacher to win the Global Teacher Prize.
Thanks, Daniele. Lily, your question, if you...
Okay. Yes. So I'm an advocate of the collaborative approach. I really don't think you can change a radical or a wicked problem or system on your own. And so maybe I go back to the question that Luca had asked, is what are the skills needed, right? So that we can shed some light on what I told you about, what the process was for us, but maybe like what it required at a skill and capability level. So I think what it required was to align the incentives, right? And for us to be able to clearly see the system in front of us. So as a group, first of all, we had to come together and let go of some of our own agenda and our own ego, right? So that's an important part. Are we willing to do that? Secondly is understand how the incentives flow. So it's really being able to look at the system and think systematically, right? So the incentives often flow in a direction which is about creating competition, right? Because they're limited funds, and the idea is you apply for those and you create the environment is that competition prevails over collaboration, right? There aren't many funding systems within the social impact sphere that encourage a collaborative approach. So we had to start reimagining that. And as we say in Italy, ci siamo seduti al tavolino, we sat at the table and we laid out, okay, what would it look like so that we could create a collaborative effort where everybody won, so that there were incentives for all of us. And we understood that the main thing we all really agreed on was that we wanted financial education. In your case, it might be you want social change maker education for all young people. And this was something that was apparent across all of our communities, the nonprofits, the funders, and government. In fact, government needed convincing, right? So once we aligned the money, and that's really important, so saying, if we get there, we're going to be looking for funding systems and movement of transfer of assets and money to look different. So we're looking at funders to think of us as a collective as opposed to as individuals. And so we started to actually apply for funding through networks in groups. So the idea of, I think the main skills are letting go of some ego, seeing the system clearly for what it is, realigning incentives, and then making the case to government for this. And when you go and make the case to government, you need absolute clarity as to what you're proposing. And so we had Young Enterprise had created this great curriculum that were this great framework for teachers so that they could incorporate it into their teaching. My bank had proof of impact. So we know from data that we had collected for 5 years, what impact it was having on young people and how it was improving their educational attainment, right? So you need to be equipped with data and clear frameworks as to what a change maker school or agenda or curriculum could look like. And what the data does is it proves that there's a need for it and that you're going to have a positive outcome. So your theory of change. And then when you have that, the hard part begins, because you have to then get the key players together. And when you're lobbying government, you know, the change of government is a big deal, right? We had originally lobbied a Labour government prior, maybe like 5 years prior. And then there was a change of government, and with the change of government came a change in curriculum. So the idea is to try and create enough relationships at a bipartisan level within each political party so that you can sustain the change over time. So it takes about, I would say, 40 steps to getting this right. And I'm happy to go into more detail of what they are. But I think those are some of the key things to consider.
Thank you very much, Lily. Very interesting and insightful conversation. We are about to close this session and the entire Ashoka Changemaker Summit. And I would like to ask you one wisdom that you have in terms of entrepreneurial and financial education. And before getting you the possibility to reply, I would ask Eleonora to show us again a video of Unicredit, a video of the final celebration of the winner of the competition of Startup Your Life. Eleonora, please.
Benvenuti, Stars of Tomorrow, vi stavamo aspettando. Ho il piacere e l'onore di dare il via alla cerimonia di premiazione dei vostri progetti.
I am happy to be part of this celebration.
Il mio augurio è di trovare sicuramente la vostra strada.
Stars of Tomorrow si riferisce a quelli che hanno una luce, un talento, e lo avete tutti.
Enjoy, thank you, and stay safe.
So we also had Moustier stay safe. I would like them to ask you a wisdom that you have. Maybe we can start with Livia.
Okay, it's very, first of all, let me thank you, Luca, because I don't know if I'll have the words later now because it's 2 minutes to go. So thanks a lot for involving me in this panel. I've learned a lot. I took a lot of notes, and And it's really always very inspiring working with you, all of the people in Ashoka, and you always organize very, very interesting things. So my wish for us is I would really quote you, is to really work together for real change. I mean, at the end, we are all working for the same. And in our case is to really instill a change in the education system. So, and I guess that, you know, the word for me today is really collaboration. So I really hope that that this is something also that we have inspired the people that are listening to us, but it's really key for all of us together. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you, Livia. What about you, Daniele? A wish that you have?
Well, a wish and a question. The wish is, I heard it somewhere, everyone a change maker. I heard it somewhere. And the question is, when are we going to taste those bottle of wines that you have at your back? Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Daniele. And I'm going to deliver you a bottle of wine. Lily, what about you?
I'll take a bottle, deliver it to LA. Look, when I started my bank, I was 26. I went to a Chinese meal with friends to celebrate, and I got a fortune cookie. I've never had one since. They don't seem to have them in many restaurants. But I opened it and it said, "I do not know the solution, but I admire the problem." And it is with a sense of admiration that we should look to these problems, really, and a sense of excitement. You know, I love this idea of living the question, living the journey, not rushing to a solution, but enjoying the process of getting to the right solution. And so I wish that for all of you. I wish many wicked problems that you can enjoy the journey of working towards solving. And if we can do that together, even better.
Thank you very much, Lily. I really want to thank you, all of you, for being here with us and discussing with us and hearing and exchanging with Lily, Daniele, and Livia. It was such a pleasure for me to moderate this panel, and I want to thank also UniCredit for having sponsored this event. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And as Daniele said, let's be